Well, welcome back to the Zombie Tactics channel with what looks like might be starting out to be a traditional tabletop-style review, but as you'll soon find out, this isn't really so much a review as it is both an overview and a review and a discussion of the controversy surrounding this device, which is the Blackhawk Serpa2 design of holster. While I've got that up here, you might take note of the fact that this holster is very well worn, because I've ran around in the dirt and tumbled around and rumbled around and rolled around in the dirt and the muck and the garbage and the gravel with this holster quite a bit, and it's been a consistent player for me. It's done a perfect job for me. But there is some controversy about this holster and whether or not it is a safe holster to use, or whether it is the reason for a number of what are called negligent discharges, where people have shot themselves in the foot or in the thigh or something like that. It's notable that a number of schools that previously recommended this holster and even sold this very holster to me, Front Sight sold me this holster, now do not allow you to use this holster on their range without disabling the retention mechanism, the Serpa2 retention mechanism, and going strictly passive. You've either got to stick a piece of plastic or cardboard or something in there to hold this thing open, or you've got to completely remove the retention activation paddle altogether to use that at Front Sight, despite the fact that for years and years and years this was a holster that they recommended and that it seemed like practically every member of their instructional staff were wearing. Now, on the opposite end of the spectrum, I recently took a course with a company called Tactical Response, James Yeager's company, and they don't sell this holster, but they've forbidden its use in their classes for a number of years, and then just recently made the decision to go ahead and allow them now. So, you know, a little bit of back and forth here. This holster is the one that's designed to go with my current carry gun, which is my Ruger SR9C, which has been chamber checked, and I'll do that again here on camera for all the safety sallies. Nothing in the chamber, nothing to worry about, and that won't change during the course of this overview. Well, to talk about the Serpa and whether or not it is safe, we've got to talk about holsters in general and what are the problems with a holster that you're trying to overcome, and how does the Serpa mechanism approach that to some other things. In other words, why did this design come about in the first place, and why is it so popular among police officers and, police officers, SWAT cops, military people? Very popular holster, and we'll get to the is it safe part. Well, a traditional holster, kind of like this Uncle Mike's, this is a model 15, size 15 Uncle Mike's, might be made out of leather, or this is made out of Cordura nylon, or tactical nylon as it's sometimes called, and it'll have a wide open channel there, some means to attach it to your belt or whatever. We'll get to the strap in a second, but for the time being we're going to assume that this doesn't have it, and that this is just on your belt or inside the waistband and attached with clips or something like that. It's a fine enough holster design, and it does make for a very easy draw because it's strictly a passive retention mechanism. The big problem with a lot of holsters like these that are passive is that with a little bit of shaking around, that holster is going to come undone. It's going to come out of the holster. So that if you are running around in a tactical course, you're a police officer, a soldier, that's a problem just using a strictly passive mechanism like that, meaning just a molded plastic or a molded nylon or leather. And so you've got to find a way to come about that, get around that. The English will work eventually. And again, you'll see that this holster has seen some use. You can tell by the frayed edges of the strap here. A traditional way to approach this would be to put some kind of a strap over the top of the gun that would hold it in place until you need to use it. And that would either go in this position here, where this would be, when worn, flipped out of the way, and then the gun would be drawn, or there would be a strap coming around this end here, and then what's called a thumb break, where the snap would be on this side, and then as you go to draw the gun, you flip it with your thumb, and it would unsnap that way. The strap would come off there, and you draw it accordingly. And those are popular as well. But those tend to be a bit on the slow side, and like it or not, thumb brakes have a reputation for failing when you most need them. And by thumb brakes, I'm talking about the kind that are on this side, that under stress, for some reason at the last second, that just does not unsnap correctly, and you're sitting there trying to get the gun out, and it's a bad deal all the way around. Well, that puts us to other kinds of retention holsters. There are these kind that are strictly a passive retention, but they do have kind of a snap-in approach. They hold the gun very firmly, and they're not going anywhere. This is a paddle-style holster. This could just as easily be one that you would stick on a belt with belt loops, and that's not going anywhere. This is a Phobos. It's a cheap $20 holster, and that you're not going to get that gun to come out of that holster if it's properly adjusted with the adjustment screw here. Now, one problem with this design is that when you do have it adjusted so that the gun will not come out, it requires a very decisive pull on that gun to get it to come out of the holster. And with most of these kinds of Kydex designs, you do have to be careful about the angle that you're pulling up on that gun as well. This holster, I can tell you from experience, again, you can see it's a little dinged up, it's seen some use. If you don't pull directly along the axis of where this holster is, directly out, that gun is not going to come out. If you try to pull it out this way, it gets stuck. If you pull it even a little bit forward, it gets stuck. It doesn't want to come out. Under stress, that's a problem. And so there's another problem we're trying to overcome with having a holster. We want a holster that both lets us get at the gun when we want it as quickly as possible, but doesn't let loose of the gun until we want to let loose of it. Well, how does the Serpa design address that? For those of you unfamiliar with it, the Serpa locks into place and it's not going anywhere. By the way, this is a design that has the adjustable belt loop on it, and Serpa, the Blackhawk folks, send you a paddle design as well that goes on the back, so this could easily operate as a paddle holster. That gun locks into place. There is a mechanical mechanism in there. That's redundant, mechanical mechanism. There's a mechanism in there that does not let loose of the gun until this paddle is depressed, and this is the proper way to do it, by flat fingering it. And you'll notice that when you do that, you don't hear, when I'm drawing the gun, any kind of mechanical anything when the gun is being drawn. And frankly, if you push the paddle down when inserting the gun, it could be completely silent as well. That is a distinct advantage of something like this if you're someone who's in a role where you want to operate in a somewhat stealthy fashion. It's very smooth, comes out, doesn't have to make any noise, and it is 100% going to stay in there unless that paddle is depressed. So what's the problem with this? This seems to solve all of our problems. It lets go of the gun when we want to let go of it, and it keeps the gun in there, seemingly, no matter what, because it's mechanically locked in place. Well, I'm sorry to say this, but the problem with this design, and I will say that it's a problem, it's an issue, I don't think it's a showstopper, but it's one that gets a lot of discussion on the gun forums, is this. People do not properly index their gun. Now let me go back to the other holsters. When you're drawing a pistol, you're supposed to draw a pistol with the master grip that has your finger straight forward, and some instructors will even tell you to have it out away from the gun like this. I don't do that, but I know some instructors that are very insistent upon that. And that is because when the gun comes out of the holster at your side, you don't want the finger inadvertently going inside of the trigger group. So, finger indexed to the side. The finger does not go during the process of a draw inside to touch that trigger until you've made the conscious decision to fire the gun. It should not be an automatic thing. As that gun is being pressed out, you make a conscious decision to fire, and then the finger goes inside the trigger group, inside the trigger guard, and you, boom, it's time to fire the gun. Many people, by the way, that's the same regardless of what kind of a holster you're using. You're not supposed to have your finger anywhere near that inside the trigger guard there until it's a conscious decision to fire. At that point in time, the finger goes inside. But many people are kind of lazy along those lines, and they get especially lazy when they are at training courses. because they want to beat that shot clock. They're competing with their friends, and instead of slowing down and getting it right, they want to be the fast gun right away. And they don't read the instructions on the holster. So what they do is, instead of properly indexing the gun and pulling it out, they'll do this. They get their finger like this, and they will press down, and there you go. Look at that. This doesn't happen every time that I do it, and because I'm trying to be honest with it. I'm not making it happen, but there it went. Now, if this gun was cocked and the safety was off, the minute that that hand comes out, ooh, there you go. I got lucky. In practicing this, it didn't happen every time. But there we go again. And that time I didn't actually pull the trigger. But this is what's happening with the Serpa design, with guns that have a fairly light trigger, like this Ruger SR9C does, or like a Glock that has no external safety mechanism. Now, while I can tell you that people are being silly in the way that they're operating their Serpa holster, there's also another factor that goes along with it. Now, you'll notice that this gun, the Ruger SR9C, it has a manual, thumb-operated, ambidextrous safety. This could be operated from either side of the gun. And what's supposed to happen is, as you're drawing the gun out of the holster, the safety is off, or I should say the safety is engaged. Off would be disengaged. The safety is disengaged. When the pistol gets rotated around to what's usually called position 3, at that point in time you're in a firing position, and the safety gets clicked off, and now you're in a position to, whether you're pointing out further or whatever, if you make the conscious decision to fire the gun, there you go. You're ready to go. But people are doing this with other pistols, including 1911 style pistols that have a very light pistol. They're leaving the safety disengaged because they want to try to get a little extra time. They want to be the big man. They want to be, they want to outdraw their friends or outdraw the instructor. So the combination of having the safety disengaged, stupid point number one, and sticking their finger on this, there they go. And as they're drawing out, they shoot themselves in the leg. Now, do I think that this is a design problem of the Serpa? I don't. I think that this is a user error. I think that it is a user error, and it is a training error, and it is a failure of the user to either learn his equipment and ingrain that proper motor memory or that muscle memory in his brain when operating the gun. Incidentally, a lot of NDs, negligent discharges, happen with Glocks as well, or other guns having nothing to do with the Serpa design, and it's because people are doing the same thing. They'll take a gun that has a safety on it, or in the case of a Glock that doesn't have a safety on it. If it has a safety, they'll click it off, they'll stick it in the holster, and they want to get on that trigger so fast that they're not flat fingering. They're not indexing the gun properly. They're going to stick it right here, and they come right out, and there they are. Happens with designs other than the Serpa as well. Now, what I think is going on here is people want to blame the Serpa design because of something called the novelty factor. And I'll put this in perspective for you based on a company that I used to work with. I used to own part of a company, or sort of own, I had some stock in it, that made a home automation system so that you could have electronic computer-based control of all the lights in your house. And we would get customer service calls from people that would go something like this: I think your system's broke because it won't turn on my kitchen light. So I think the switch in my kitchen is dead. And you send a service person out to address the issue, and you find out there's nothing wrong with the switch and there's nothing wrong with the system. There's something wrong with their light bulb. Their light bulb just went out. Well, everybody knows light bulbs go out, but because of the novelty factor of having a home automation system installed, they automatically assumed that that was the thing that was wrong. People are doing the same thing, I think, psychologically with the Serpa2 system. They're assuming that because this is the novel thing, this is the new device in the system, that they're assuming it is the thing at fault, instead of saying, no, keep your finger where it belongs on the draw. Don't do this stupid business. And on top of that, there you go. If your gun has a safety device, it's there to be used. It's not there to be ignored. That's important on a gun like this, like the SR9C, even though it has a very Glock-like internal safety mechanism. And it's doubly important on something like a 1911 style pistol, where it has a very light trigger and it has an external safety as part of getting you around the fact that it's got that really light trigger. Twisting my words here. But that's both a review and an overview of the Serpa design and addressing the issue of whether this is an inherently unsafe design or not. I don't think it is. I think it's a fine design as long as you read the manual, you operate it the way you're supposed to operate all pistols, you don't break stupid rules and try to, mash your finger there like that. You don't disengage the safeties on your pistols. You operate it honestly, and you train with your weapon system within the manual of arms that it is designed to operate within. The Serpa2 system, I think it's a fine holster. I'm going to continue using it. I'm personally very disappointed that Front Sight has stopped allowing you to use this with the retention mechanism, and I'm really happy that Tactical Response has seen the light. That's Zombie Tactics for today, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye. Well, welcome back to the Zombie Tactics channel with what looks like might be starting out to be a traditional tabletop-style review, but as you'll soon find out, this isn't really so much a review as it is both an overview and a review, and a discussion of the controversy surrounding this device, which is the Blackhawk Serpa2 design of holster. While I've got that up here, you might take note of the fact that this holster is very well worn, because I've ran around in the dirt and tumbled around and rumbled around and rolled around in the dirt and the muck and the garbage and the gravel with this holster quite a bit, and it's been a consistent player for me. It's done a perfect job for me. But there is some controversy about this holster and whether or not it is a safe holster to use, or whether it is the reason for a number of what are called negligent discharges, where people have shot themselves in the foot or in the thigh or something like that. It's notable that a number of schools that previously recommended this holster and even sold this very holster to me, Front Sight sold me this holster, now do not allow you to use this holster on their range without disabling the retention mechanism, the Serpa2 retention mechanism, and going strictly passive. You've either got to stick a piece of plastic or cardboard or something in there to hold this thing open, or you've got to completely remove the retention activation paddle altogether to use that at Front Sight, despite the fact that